Okay, wait.
A lot of digital things going on in Digital Innovation Pavilion, including experimentation of digital tools.
No, why did the screen disappear? The screen disappeared. Sometimes when the neighboring pavilion switches off, it goes off here.
See, these are the trades
But
off in
not
the world
this.
of digitalization.
Okay. No, I think we will just not have it. We will just focus on this one, and then it's okay. Okay. So
Should be a start.
we start.
Thank you so much, Miro. Really appreciate that. For a second, that like the screen went off, and then Miro started that. I thought he's going to go on Netflix and streamline Netflix, but it's like no. We're back to the conversation. Uh, Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining this conversation. And Rita and Kavita, thank you so much for taking the time early in the morning joining this session. I'm Purya Salehi. I'm the head of Research, Innovation, and Development Department at ICLEI and co-chair of Research and Innovation at Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. It's a pleasure to be part of this conversation. And here we have my beloved colleague Simone. We've been doing a lot this COP together, and she's obviously an expert on the transformation and connecting different tools from behavioral change to digitalization, a wide range of portfolios that we need to deploy for transformation. And thanks so much for being with us, Simone. And we have Rita Rinaldo online joining us, the head of studies and implementation at European Space Agency. And of course, my colleague Kavita, who's the driving force behind the recently established task force of space for smart and green cities that today we are going to talk about it here. So I think a quick background, we know that data is a very big thing for decision making. And despite collecting a lot of data, many of them get junky before we really use them in a meaningful way. From another perspective, there are a lot of other emerging sources of data that can really help us navigate the challenges and crisis, the poly-crisis today we are facing. And when it comes to decision making, many local leaders finding it challenging to really match the past performances that they were doing with today's uncertainties and increasing complexity in our urban systems. And one of the tools is that can really support them in their decision making is data, real-time, solid type of data that could be deployed to support decision making and policy making processes. With that in mind, a European Space Agency established a task force in September this year at ESRIN in Rome, a task force on space for smart and green cities, hoping to leverage space-related data to delivering on the hopes and promises of smart and green cities. And one of the very important messaging in this space that I really liked was based on what I understand from the thought leaders of this task force, they're not limiting this task force only to space, and they are looking into digital technology in general and smart solutions as a tool, not as an end. And that's exactly where it resonates with our mission and mandate to ensure we harness digital technology, including space technology, for cities as a means. So with that, and without any further ado, it's best to hear from the thought leaders behind this task force a little bit, walking all of us through the task force and the steps that you have in mind, the objectives and the structure. And afterwards, we'll come back to Timone, who's working at the interface of science and policy and technology, to see to what extent this may resonate, knowing that this task force is a collaborative space, and we would like to ensure that this is as collaborative as possible. Thank you so much, Rita, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Purya, and thanks to this opportunity for being virtually with all of you this morning. Yes, indeed, we would like to present you with the initiative that we are establishing, that we have started already, like Purya was saying earlier this year, that goes around the utilization of space data and space technologies together with digital technologies in support of the challenges faced by the cities in the future, so climate challenges, societal challenges, etc. We have prepared, I think, a small contribution that better illustrates it, and I don't know if we can share it. Oh, here it comes.
It's loading.
Very good. Yes. Thank you. So if we start... yes, exactly. So the first thing is the small introduction about the European Space Agency, because of course I appreciate that this may not be known to the audience. ESA is the European gateway to space, and it's an intergovernmental agencies contributed by 22 member states in Europe, and whose purpose is to foster collaboration and cooperation among European stakeholders using space for exclusively peaceful purposes, of course, so supporting both R&D technologies as well as application developments. If we go to the next slide, we can see that we cover quite a lot of different domains, from science and exploration. Probably you've heard about Curiosity and other initiatives, the Moon Future Initiative, etc. And then we have the enabling and support, the R&D and development axis. We cover a number of projects in the domain of safety and security. And then there is the pillar where I would like to zoom in, that is the one related to application. So how we can best leverage space data and technologies, so navigation technologies, Earth observation data, as well as satellite communication technologies in order to support activities here on Earth, like, for example, the understanding of climate variables, climate change, and what can we do in terms of acting to mitigate and adapt to those challenges. If we move to the next, you see that specifically the program that I'm managing, the Business Application and Space Solution programs, is about exploitation of space data assets in the context of the wider digital technologies and digital economy for addressing the needs of different sectors, basically all potential user communities that could benefit from the use of space. And therefore, moving from the transport sector, maritime sector, aviation. I'm here in Lisbon exactly to talk about maritime sustainability and the green transition of the shipping sector. But there are also a number of other sectors like agri-food, healthcare, and many of them are really relevant to the challenges faced by the cities. If we move next, we have, let's say, three really, we say that our DNA leverages on three pillars. And the first one is related to sustainability. And what do we mean by sustainability? Sustainability, I would say, in its broader concept, which has three dimensions. the societal sustainability, the environmental one, and the economic sustainability. So we look into supporting proposals from companies that can deliver services, of course, using space, and that can contribute positively in terms of societal impact, in terms of environmental impact, and that are also sustainable from an economic perspective, so that they can really be adopted by user communities in the future. This is why the user. Can we still go back one? This is why the user-driven dimension is very important. We would like the user communities to participate very much into the project, into the demonstration of the services that are developed in order to test them, provide feedback, support the companies and guide them towards improving their solution. And the third pillar is, of course, supporting companies themselves to address those challenges, to address the needs, the urgent needs of the users, and be competitive on the market. If we move next now, yes, we can see that a wide portfolio of the projects that we have supported actually provides a positive environmental impact. And we have mapped them against different topics, and we see that really space technologies play a unique and pivotal role to address the challenges, for example, related to sustainable mobility, to the transition to different low carbon way of mobility, but also to producing food more sustainably, to protecting the ecosystem, and as well as other areas. And I think this graph is going to change because of course new potential challenges, new sectors will emerge, and therefore the opportunity to use space and digital technology, a new way of using a wealth of data coming from different providers, will be exploited. Moving next, now coming into the topic related really at smart cities, what space can do for smart cities. Actually, there are really a very, very, very vast portfolio, and I think we say sky is not the limit, because here we can think that more and more solutions will emerge and more innovation is possible in the future. But just to give some example, first of all, satellite communications. Whenever we think about data, for example, massive machine-to-machine IoT data, they need to be relayed. And relayed can happen through terrestrial technologies or through satellite communication technologies, where the terrestrial network is not present, or simply as a backup in case of situations where the terrestrial network is not available. Then there is the GNSS. GNSS stands for Global Navigation Solutions, and it allows basically to georeference, so it provides position, navigation, and timing information, and therefore it allows to georeference any data in time and in space, and therefore it's essential for for really it's at the basis of the digital economy. Then we have this what we call space data, that are data from satellite Earth observation satellites, that can be of different nature, can come from a synthetic aperture radar, can be infrared data, multispectral data, and allow to map all what happens on Earth, land changes, land use, mapping changes and in cities, in urbanization, and therefore it's very precious to complement local data to have a wider picture and more detailed in some cases. If we go next, Yes, here you can see the history. We don't start from scratch with the launch of the task force in September this year, but actually we have a long history of collaboration with cities and with stakeholders in the cities around some challenges, and we have launched together with them a number of initiatives already. The first one in 2019, based on the cooperation with some cities in Italy, for example, Rome, that addressed a number of topics that were highlighted to us as important ones from the cities, like cultural heritage, law enforcement and emergency response, intelligent transport. And then we have follow up with other initiatives around circularity, circular cities, around urban air mobility, the mapping of the urban green areas in city, because we have to remind ourselves that also weather data comes from satellite, air quality data can come from, for example, the Sentinel-5P satellite, etc. So this is all precious information to derive information about the air quality in city and mapping urban green areas. And so on and so forth. Green construction, how we decrease end-to-end the carbon footprint of the construction sector, and further. And of course, we want to do more and more in the future. Moving next, I would like to provide you, just for inspiration, some ideas of based on projects that were really developed and that are actually used today. The first one is called U-Track. We just talked about air quality, and air quality is very important because it allows not only a mapping, but really acting and mitigating the issue. And this is, for example, a solution that is related to the utilization of air quality data, fusing data from satellite and data from collected on ground, for example, from sensors either installed on public transport vehicles or in other places in the cities, and provides a full solution that allows to dynamically manage the transportation system in the city. And this is already implemented in several cities in the UK, and looking for a wider implementation even in Dubai. If we move next, we have another example. This one is related to energy, and it's a very hot topic because this is an extremely successful project because it's about supporting the transition to electric mobility, and allows through the let's say the mapping of the traffic through position navigation and timing solutions to derive basically the typical driver characteristics and allow the user, the consumers, to make the best utilization of their electrical vehicles, switching energy from the grid and ingesting it again in the grid when they are in overflow. So this is a very powerful tool for supporting cities in adopting and promoting the transit to electric mobility. If we go next, this is about the mapping of the trees, the mapping of and the expansion and the planning of green areas in city. It's already used in Luxembourg by the Ville de Luxembourg, and this is about developing a low-cost platform that not only allows an inventory of the trees in the city, but also providing a map also related not only to the tree location, but its characteristic, the canopy cover, the height of the trees, estimate their growth, and therefore is a precious tool for planners, for urban planners. Next, and the last, I think we are finished with the examples. So now we move really to the space for Smart and Green City Task Force that we just launched. And before giving the floor to Kavita, I would just like to mention what are the key objectives and why we have started this task force. Because we see that from our experience, despite we have supported tens of very successful projects that find their adoption into reality in the cities. The current situation, the current emergence, and what I've learned also, I was at COP a few days ago, but what I learned also in the previous months called really for stepping up the collaboration, stepping up the opportunities to scale the solutions that are already available, and push for emergence of more and innovative solutions that are really responding to the needs of citizens in the city. And this is why the task force has 3 key objectives. The first one is leveraging the use of space application for providing sustainable and innovative services addressing the city's ecosystem, putting the citizens at the center of and driving the needs and the development of innovative solutions. Second is increasing the impact generated by the solution, that we can support the risking, and therefore we need a large scale platform in order to foster adoption of that solution. And this is why the third point is really this need of offering a matchmaking platforms, allowing these projects this opportunity to scale, and not only of course in Europe but worldwide. How are we doing this? With the process where we start from collecting the user needs and the requirements, defining together with the cities the priorities, the topics, and then trigger new initiatives, out of which new projects will emerge that will be then presented and hopefully implemented at scale. The benefits that we expect is to increase city resilience against environmental and risk factors, ensure sustainable socioeconomic growth, and support responsible developments. At the same time, supporting companies growing and deploying their solutions. And I leave the floor to Kavita that will go a bit more in detail into really what we are doing next.
Thank you, Rita. So yes, I will start with first of all thanking everybody to give me opportunity to present about the task force. And so where I come from is more, I am leading on the task force initiatives looking at the application of space data. And this map we are showing here is to show that it's more not just about the European level, but also international level. So we start with a holistic approach of looking across the globe and identifying the problems the city or municipalities have in terms of either urban development or air quality or mobility. And we wanted to understand their needs first before going into these are the solutions we want to provide. So it's more of what is the problem, how do we identify engaging with the citizens and authorities, and then come up with the solution for that one. So we have started with international engagement, Los Angeles, Mexico, and also focusing on Europe, and also focusing on the lower level, going down up to the cities level. So this is our holistic approach. And this map shows the cities we have engaged so far and the countries we have engaged so far. And also some of the cities have already signed a letter of interest with us, and then they become part of the task force. So at the moment, you can see in terms of Europe, we have covered Germany, Spain, Italy, and Netherlands, but we would also like to expand a little bit more. That's when we actually get what are the needs and the challenges the cities have, rather than selected number of cities we are engaging with. And that's why I think I'm looking to Poria as well from ICLEI, and also network of cities who can join this task force. So they can provide access to these citizens and the end users, rather than us going through each of the countries. It's much better if we have support from the network of cities, and definitely ICLEI is on the top of the list for us. And when we engage with those city authorities, these are the 4 topic priority areas they came up with. First one was the urban development, second was sustainable mobility, third one energy, and the fourth one was well-being inclusiveness. There are other topics which also came, but these 4 came at the top. And when we talk about urban development, there are so many things. It's an umbrella thing, and it encompasses so many other things. But in terms of priority, we started, okay, so you say urban development. What are the topics within urban development you would like us to focus on? And this is where they said, okay, we need to look at digitalization. That's the main thing, I think, in terms of how do you digitalize. And today, what we are talking is in digital innovation. And they came up with some of the topics within digitalization. The first one was digital infrastructure. How do you do the transformation? How can we build the digital twin? I think in one of the examples before we said how satellite data can provide information which can be added as layers to the digital twins. And the other one, when you have this digitalization, we need to have a cultural change as well. So how the people behave, how do you embrace all these technologies as well? And we don't want to leave anyone behind during this digitalization. And that came as very, very strong requirement for the cities. Of course, 5G network as well. And the robotics, something that was very interesting for us to understand. How can robotics be implemented for the cities? And there were so many ideas which came. It could be for using assistance for monitoring, last mile delivery, and maintenance of some of the infrastructures as well. Nature-based solution, I know ICLEI has one of the pathways. Nature-based solution is one of the important one for them. And that also came up. And when it came to environment, they were looking at air quality, urban heat island, and climate change. Anything related to climate change came out as a very important topic. The interesting one was the 15-minute city. They were really interested in how approximately we have all the facilities within 15 minutes of where you are from. So that was very interesting, and also circular economy. When it came to sustainable mobility, electric mobility and infrastructure came out as a very important topic, mobility as a service. And these are some of the trends in terms of smart traffic management, connected autonomous vehicle, and alternative fuel as well. So one of them was hydrogen, but there are other things as well. And energy, and also well-being and inclusiveness. I'm not going into detail of energy and well-being because the color coding shows here is more the green ones are the working groups we are creating at the moment, and they will be going forward. And the one on the gray one, they will become green very soon next year. But for now, we want to start a small and then grow big. So we'll be looking at the urban development working group. So this is how the task force will be divided into. So it will start with the urban development working group, sustainable mobility working group, and then go on to build. And this will not be the only topic. If there are other topics which are emerging based on our engagement, this is again, those topics would be added as well. And this is the roadmap we have in one slide. I tried to fit in. Last year, this time is when we started talking about the slide which had all the initiatives which I showed before. We said, okay, we're looking at the portfolio. We've engaged with a number of cities. What do we do with them? We need to do something which is really useful for them. And that's when we started engaging with our one of the national contact points was DLR. So we started talking to them because some of the cities and smart cities was an important topic for them. So we started engaging with German cities. That's the reason why we started there. Otherwise, it's depending on who was supporting us at that point. And then we had several other meetings with German cities, and then we also included talent cities, the Spanish ones, and that's how it ended up. So we had so many number of different high-level discussion with all the cities, and following up to and building up to this launch of the task force. Just huge effort, a lot of meetings required, also time and the resources. We understand it's not only on our side, it's also on the city side as well. So it's really important. And that's why we have kept it a bit more modular, so you can engage with us at the level you want. Either you can say, I have a use case with which I would like the companies to focus on, and then they can be with them until the piloting of the service in the city. Or they can say, these are my requirements, go do the work, and I would be interested in looking at Outlook. So there are different ways of cities that can engage with us. And from that, then onwards in September launch, we are again not sitting there. We really want to implement. It's a very implementative focused task force. So we have started working on with the advisory board. The working group ICLEI is one of them, and the working group are supposed to be established either in December or in January. So that's our plan. But with initiative looking at some of the topics of priority, the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure one, the robotics, and also smaller initiatives looking at the sorry, excuse me, looking at the nature-based solutions and the cultural change. So some of the topics we are trying to look into. And this is our roadmap, and we'd be really, really happy if you would like to come and talk to us and be part of this task force. I think that's where I stop my presentation, and I'll pass it on to Poria now. Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing from what the space when you were presenting and knowing that like I was obviously aware of this, but then we are talking about this at the Digital Innovation Pavilion, right? And when it comes to digital innovation, for me it has two interpretation. A is like what is innovation within the world of digitalization. It's like, you know, new cutting edge technologies like blockchain, for example, was an innovation a few years ago, right? So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect that probably organizations like ICLEI is interested is what are the innovative ways of using these cutting edge technologies for different purposes that matters for global community. And I honestly had not thought of that, but as an urban planner, I was thinking that like, right, like how we can use this data and the space data, for example. And one of them is like, we all know that every day tens of hectares of arable lands and jungles are being turned to residential areas or brownfields. So how we can use this data and the satellite imagery and space data to sort of observe and maintain this observation to avoid land degradation, which is one of the forms of land degradation, right? This land use conversions. Or another angle is land conflict. You know, now that climate change impacts are sort of becoming increasingly challenging for many communities, particularly communities that their livelihood depends on agriculture, horticulture, and livestock in majority of the world. For example, in Africa, now the fight over water resources become tough. Now I can name a few of them that I know. For example, currently, like the provinces in Afghanistan with their neighboring countries, they are in conflict because the water resources are shrinking, and then they are, you know, taking it to global, you know, courts that like, okay, who owns which part of this water, and this conflict is existing there, and also between cities, between provinces and different governance structures. So using this space data can really show like the sort of evolution of a water reservoir, for example, and then, you know, how this evolved and what were the indicators or the causes of that. Or another one is, you know, we all know that cadastre is quite important, and accuracy in cadastre matters even more nowadays because of the value of land, and knowing that land value and land taxation is becoming one of the mechanisms of financing climate action, right? So space data combined with other airborne data, for example, could really support these things. These are just like a few random use cases that just like, you know, hit me as I was listening into. And for that exact reason, I wanted Simona and Miro to be part of this conversation, because in the world that in the area of activities that Simona, for example, I understand from her work, is trying to connect bits and pieces together for a community transformation. We need a series of toolkits, and obviously not all of them are digital. Even if they are smart, they might not be digital. But this doesn't mean that digital technology doesn't have has a role. Actually, it's a very strong role, as long as it's sort of serving as a means for the purposes. And then it's the role of thought leaders to really think what would be a meaningful application of it. And obviously, it will start from testing, you know, experimenting, and then finding the way forward. But I just like wanted to share this immediate thoughts that I have, and now yield the floor to Simone to hear that, like, to what extent it really resonates with you? What are the potential use cases that may come to your mind, and how do you see this task force and the portfolio of activities that you are leading at UNU can connect and hopefully reinforce the impacts and the positive results? Thank you, Simone.
Thank you so much. So I now need to pitch use cases. I've heard that would be amazing. Yes, I can. So no, thanks for this super interesting insights. And I have already written a couple of pages here, so I'm full of ideas, and maybe I'm trying to structure them along some spatial scales, because I think the last slide said space is open for business, and I'm an urban planner, I'm an architect as well, and usually we tend to think on the very local scale, right? And of course, we do need data, and I think data is increasingly becoming even a question of life and death, even under climate change. So we need data to plan cities, to plan them wisely, but also to protect us and our urban populations from whatever hazards and disasters. And that is what my institute at the UN University. So I'm from the Bonn Institute there, which is working on environment and human security. So basically very much around natural hazards, disaster risk reduction, climate change, adaptation and mitigation. And none of that can be done in a meaningful way without data. And just maybe starting from the space, and it just struck my mind that this space is open for business, because just a couple of days ago, our institute launched its annual flagship report, the Interconnected Risk Report, mapping 6 risk tipping points. And one of them is actually space related and is about space debris, with explaining the risk that emerges from too many satellites being shot into the sky. And at some point, we're risking ourselves because of then ongoing destruction of satellites, which are providing the data that we do need, for instance, for early warning. And that is, for instance, something the Secretary General of the United Nations is pledging so much, that we have a huge share of the global population that does not yet have access to early warning systems. And that includes people living in cities, thinking about floodings, thinking about just mappings of floodings or early warnings also from tsunamis, from storms, and so on. And that, of course, is a global thing, but it's also an urban thing, because this is home to more than half of the world population. And then I would also think this data question very much now going a little bit down to urban and local levels. The question is also, how does this data then reach me as an end user? How is it being processed, on what? And I would believe that something like this initiative could very beautifully help and be supportive in trying to think about systemic approaches to deal with that data, because what we see too often is that the same data has to be collected multiple times, because different sectors and ministries, whatever, don't speak to each other. So having a go-to solution with one platform maybe that would allow for having it, and maybe even also thinking about very local communities, which is where I mostly work, providing them some access in an easy way. Of course, that requires some intermediaries like researchers, like organizations like ICLEI and others, to process the data, to make it accessible for the local scale. But that is so important, because one of my biggest projects that I'm running now is under the International Climate Initiative. It's on transformative urban coalitions, and we're working so much in data scarce environments, which sounds so strange after having listened to this beautiful presentation, which provides this whole portfolio. But when it comes down to the local level, too often we don't have data. And how do we make use of the data, for instance, on these mappings for where to plan nature-based solution, where are they most meaningful, how to develop the cities in the future? Is it then, in which directions do they develop? One of the other buzzwords that were named in the presentation was urban sprawl, as you have also mentioned so beautifully, Puria. Where and how do we develop it further? Are we shooting ourselves, then building up the areas that are actually the food resources in the very end, or the groundwater levels that provide the water? So there's just so much, and maybe I can end on one little tiny story. So we even ourselves in one of the communities we're working in, we had to develop ourselves a questionnaire which basically replicated the national census, because I see you nodding. ICLEI is also working very much in local communities and dealing with informal settlements and so on. They're the ones that are lacking data, very often even the most basic data. And just by remote sensing applications and using space-based technologies, at least part of that data can be generated. We just need to make it accessible to them, and also urge urban planners and the decision makers to make use of it as much as possible. I would end on that.
Thank you so much, Simona. I genuinely enjoyed the way like you immediately like start thinking, and that's the thing, like the dialogue between different stakeholders working around same boundary objective of sustainability, and then like one provides the technology and data and the convenings, and another brings ideas based on the science, but also based on the tangible work, working with cities, knowing the local realities in different regions are different, and we need to sort of gear our technologies towards addressing those challenges. And some people like Miro who look into like how to really use very leading technologies, engaging artists in climate change and sustainability conversations. And these are the things that like we cannot really solve it overnight, but the thing is like as long as there is a dialogue starting in a space. Of course, it's the European Space Agency, but I saw a Canadian flag as well. But this space of task force for this constant exchange between these thought leaders, so that like we agree on a few sort of concrete steps and applications, and then hopefully like others will join these partners in terms of delivery and application to sort of showcase if that is actually a successful application. Then it goes to scale up, which I'm sure there are other mechanisms, because not one single initiative could answer all the challenges that we have, obviously. So thanks a lot for very nicely sort of connecting the dots here. Miro, I actually would like to put you on a spot in a moment. And that's lovely. I would love to sort of hear actually from you to what extent like what we heard here. I see. Okay, I see like you're bringing something really connected to this conversation, developing tools for local SDG climate action. So I would love to hear from you what Rita and Kavita shared about the task force, but also the sort of connection that Simone brought from the world that she's working, which resonated a lot for me at the end of the day, working with cities, but you also like working in policy and innovation and digital world and connecting the dots. I would like to understand, how do you sort of connect to what has been discussed so far?
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Puria, for this great opportunity. We are delighted and proud to have ICLEI, UN University, and ESA here as our guests at the Digital Innovation Pavilion at COP28. So I'm the strategic director of the Climate Change Coalition. It's the world's leading network of organizations looking how to use blockchain technology for multi-stakeholder climate action empowerment. And I'm also the founder and CEO of AAI GLOCHA. It's the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. And our theory of change, our mission is that we need to improve our response mechanisms to global challenges like climate change. We have the UN system as a intergovernmental, international mechanism, which is not delivering good enough results. And we are saying, let's build the tools for local SDGs climate action. Let's create the new thinking, the enabling ecosystems, and the data and digital innovation infrastructure that the individual global citizen will know what to do, that it will have the tools to document what he or she is doing, and then it will be put into reported, verified, and certified, and then the basis for incentivization through micro climate entrepreneurship models or through gamification. And so we have one thing, that's the IAI Challenges Mapping app, which can very nicely be connected with what you are doing. The point here that I want to make is the citizens science data gathering layer. And we have just a few days ago had also, no, it was yesterday, with UNEP, the UN Geospatial Information Network. So they are also looking how to collect space-related data and to make it actionable for governance, but also for the different players. So one question that I was thinking at, does ESA, this smart cities model, have also cooperation there? And the second contribution or whatever to this discussion is UN Habitat. Are they also part of the game? We are also collaborating with UN Habitat Youth Program. We have each year at the UN headquarters in New York in September a conference and exhibit, and we would be delighted to include also content, use cases, highlights, inspiring stories from your Smart Cities initiative there. And then the third question, or somehow, is regarding space for Olympic Games. This, I think this has very high potentials. We are looking also very much into edutainment and also this aspect of localization, getting everybody engaged. So we are thinking of Good Life for All app, which would combine healthy lifestyle, sports for all, and also everyone taking action for the common good, for the planet. So I'd be grateful if you could share some information about whether you are connected with the UN Geospatial Information Network and some more details about the Olympic Games. And in general, congratulations to your great work, and congratulations to having Puria on your board there also as a partner. He is doing wonderful work in ICLEI, and we are happy to partner with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Miro, for your comments. And Miro is the catalytic type of personality that connects the dot and different institutions, and he maintains a very good overview of which UN organization is doing what when it comes to digitalization, and that's why he wants to see all of this come together to avoid replication and reinforce each other's impacts. And obviously, I understand that this task force is new, and again, like, this is my understanding. I would like to ask Rita and Kavita, but they are bringing different partners to actually share all of this bits and pieces to connect and create the bigger picture moving forward. But Rita, maybe we can start with you to share some reflections to what Miro shared. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. Starting from the Olympic Games, and yeah, indeed. I think this is, well, the topic of the Olympic Games, but in general of the sports events, is something where we are working very hard. And we have launched several initiatives and started some projects. And actually there are multiple challenges, right, that that the city faces when there are such events. There are the parts related to the sustainable planning of the infrastructure of the events. And therefore, this is something that we do, the Space for Olympics, not only for Paris, but also for the Winter Olympics. And we talk with the Olympic Committee and see what are the challenges. So this is clearly one aspect, the sustainability, how people will move, what are the implications of planning such big infrastructure. We discuss also, for example, with UEFA around the football, the sport events. So and then there is also the management of the safety of the people in the city during the event. There is the part related to the let's say this is connected really with the digital world about for example augmented reality and other tools together with space to bring the experience accessible to every citizens, right? Even the one that cannot join physically the event. So the issue around accessibility, and this is something that we started working on with Rome, no, for bringing Colosseum to everybody, no, or the archaeological parks in Rome. So the all issues related to the accessibility and fruition of cultural heritage. This is another aspect that we have started developing, and we would like to do it even more together with cities and together with all stakeholders involved. So I'm very happy to hear that this is something that has potential also of wider interest in the community, and we are looking for developing it even further. And in relation to the UN habitat and the UN geo information, I think we don't have a really established contacts, so we would like to be happy to pursue this conversation and this collaboration eventually. Thank you. I would like, Puria, if you allow me, I thought the contribution of Simone was also very interesting about the data platform. And if you allow me, I would like to make one reflection, one consideration. Because I think we always talk about, indeed, the scarcity of data, how precious they are about data platforms. And I think we have a challenge. And on one hand, we would like, indeed, to develop a platform that could be exploited at a large scale. On the other hand, we face a reality where when I speak to cities in Europe, let's say the large size city, they are all already undertaking, or they have undertaken initiative to develop their own platform, while other cities, the middle size or the small size, don't. So this is the first challenge, that we start from a dishomogeneous starting point. And the second challenge is, what are really the needs? What do we want to develop in this platform? There are cities who want to make it available to all citizens because of data democracy, in order to allow our citizens to be part of the development of the city. There are other cities that have other requirements. And myself, being an engineer, if I look at the data, even space data, that are needed for certain applications, they are different than the one that would be needed for urban planning. So this is just to say that we really need to go. Also, it's difficult to pre-design something that fits for all. We really need to discuss with the urban planners, with the architects, with the people working in the mobility sector in the cities, with the energy, what do we need to make cities more energy efficient or mobility friendly, etc., and understand, or the nature-based solution that we could discuss, and understand what are the specific needs, and then discuss with cities what is that they want to develop, and then find a solution to develop this at scale in an affordable way to all. And this is what you said, Puria. Then, of course, we can give a contribution, but then we need to tie in with other network of perhaps investors or funds and support this expansion at scale. So actually, there are challenges, and we are very motivated, but we look forward to collaborate with others to achieve this result.
Thanks a lot, Rita. Really appreciate that. I think, yes, what you said makes a lot of sense, and I think that's something that many would agree on, that many cities with resources might have their own dedicated pool of digital tools, but obviously the type of space data and space related technology can provide type of services that smaller cities or cities in countries in transition or least developed countries could benefit from that. Just a very good example of early warning systems that Simone mentioned obviously could be one of that. And this is again, like, the more that we talk, the more I'm confident that if this conversation continues, it will lead to some really tangible, meaningful actions that will go in line, hand in hand with the ongoing initiatives under different organizations. We certainly, I think my key takeaway would be to make sure this conversation continues. But I would like to ask Simone, knowing that like we're almost coming to the time for her final remarks.
My goodness, that's challenging putting it together. Maybe as one example, this discussion reminds me so much of an initiative we developed over the last years, which is not necessarily only urban, but we were asked by the government of Indonesia to bring together climate adaptation, social protection, and disaster risk reduction, making it adaptive social protection. And in the roadmap for the government, it was an initiative under GIZ, one of the 4 building blocks is data. Because we need to bring it together. And what I feel is, as much as I totally agree that is talking to architects, talking to urban planners, talking to transport planners, that is all super valuable. But I think they often have the current reality in their mind, but not what could be developed in the future. And that is probably what you at ESA and then also you with your initiative then can contribute to it, to have this future looking perspective and just to show us what could be done.
No, this is great. Really appreciate that. I think as a member of European Space Agency's Space for a Smart City, a Smart and Green Cities Task Force, I really like, from bottom of my heart, I would like to invite and make sure both of you will stay in touch with the task force. We will discuss with Rita and Kavita and Davida, of course, how to sort of connect in a more formal way, hopefully. And making sure that like this conversation doesn't die here. Oftentimes, we talk, but then we drop things after events. So for me personally, it's really important to take this further and lead to action so that hopefully next year we come back here and say, oh, like we started a conversation and this is an action that is happening. And I think that is the moment that we can be proud of it. So I'm just like, setting this hope for all of us and looking up to all of you collectively to make this happen together. But final remarks, David, did you raise your hand? Do you wanted to make a comment? Yeah, no, there's time for your comment, of course. Before going to Mira, I would like you to make your comment or question, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for those really interesting presentations. And it's great to understand more about the task force, and the presentation really laid out exactly what it's offering in terms of solutions. So I think from my side, as you've been saying, like I really agree this kind of vision for the future is really important in terms of the use of data. And also, I think it's very complex, like cities are complex systems. So looking at the example of mobility, for example, when we think about sustainable mobility systems, we're looking at one side environmental sustainability, and on the other side, like the social side, which is not just making people aware of a more sustainable option, but creating that option in a way where it's integrated and it becomes the logical choice, right? And moves people towards that behavior in a kind of, I think, organic manner. So for that, like to bring those things together, I think you almost need like new approaches to the data that's being used, right? Because a lot of the data doesn't look at this integrated perspective. It's either the environmental side or the use side. And I think like a way to bring that together would be really interesting to get your perspective on. And then I also really like the conversation about identifying the needs and pairing the technologies that are available with the needs of local governments. And that was actually my original question that I'd kind of thought of based on the conversation is, what do you see as your next steps in terms of this collaboration on this local scale, with engaging with local governments and perhaps citizens as well, to better understand the challenges and the unique aspects of each cities, to make sure that this pairing is really fitted to future challenges. Thanks.
Like it's probably a comment that all the moderators says, oh, great question, but it was actually a great question, because like that was like it was because it was we briefly discussed this back in Rome about like finding the needs, and also like briefly online continued that, because ICLEI has designed some tools hand in hand with some other organization. In this case, I can refer to the ISUDA, Integrated Sustainable Urban Development Assessment, to identify persistent and emerging needs in a given jurisdiction. And this was a tool that we developed under Global Environment Facility 6, GEF 6 cycles for Global Platform for Sustainable Cities. Then we revamped it for the GEF 7 cycle for Urban Shift with WRI and UNEP. And that's the type of tools that I think is the responsibility of us to really like apply it in some of the cities that are joining this task force, identifying the needs in a very solid and rigorous way, as opposed to just thinking that is the need, but actually making sure those needs are the root causes of the challenge, and we don't address the symptoms. And then based on those needs, designing these actions that we have in mind. But I would like to yield the floor back quickly to Kavita and Rita. Do you want to share a quick reflection on what David shared, please?
Maybe I can go. Yes. So in terms of the structure of the task force itself, we probably didn't present the organigram of that. So we start with advisory board, but then for all the topics we have working groups, and this will be meeting quite often. It's not like every year once. It's more very frequent, every 2 or 3 months, and we will try to include as many cities as possible during those meetings, and then give them these are the list. And we had a recent meeting where we had the cities and we projected these are the topics, could you maybe vote? So we're trying to keep it as more democratic and say, is this really your first priority or is this a second priority? We collected that and we did it live as well of all the cities which participated to see the ranking as we go in terms of to each city voting for it. And this is how we would like to include all the cities and also the network at the same time. So when we have the advisory board, we take these topics and say, this has come as priorities. What is your thinking? Is it already being done? Because we also talked about not inventing something. So what is already existing, and then how we can add value to what is existing, or if there is something new, how do we start a new one as well? So it's more talking to them first, understanding, and it's more user need rather than technology push. And we are very, very conscious about that.
Thanks a lot, Kavita. I think it certainly resonates with what we have in mind to leverage digital technologies as a tool for the needs on the ground. This conversation can go on and on, but like I just thought of the Ljubljana Forum. Actually, our colleague Blaj Globe, who's with their wonderful team, is running a 13 years forum in Ljubljana, and that's I had the honor of participating Ljubljana Forum this year. And it was really inspiring to see a lot of initiatives like this were coming there, and it was for me really impressive to see that there were projects there that they were saying like we actually started the conversation 2 years ago here, and then now like we have developed this, and some of them were not only private but also private-public partnerships and companies and collaboration with small scale and bigger scale companies with cities, obviously mostly in Balkan region, but also they are expanding. So I think this is. But making sure that like this conversation lead to tangible impacts. Everyone brings their own perspective. Like I'm so glad that Kavita was talking about talking to cities and finding their needs. At ICLEI, if you go even one level deeper, it's like what you say is actually your need or what you want, and like let's test it. And like if you are representing a city, you're one individual. Is it like the perspective of the entire local government? Or is only your perspective? So there are a lot of biases in these processes that we want to reduce those biases, and this would not happen unless we use methodological approaches. So if each of us do our parts in a very meaningful way, then we can next year and the year after can come and say, oh, like, yes, I see that this is going to a direction that delivering on the needs of the local people, and at the same time catering to the objectives and global goals that we have set. Miro, last words from you.
Last words for me. Together we are strong, stronger, and a better world is possible. We are unstoppable. That's what I would say. Thanks for being.
Thank you to Kavita and Rita. I know you both have commitments. Kavita, really appreciate you taking the time while being in India and dealing with a lot of personal challenges. Rita, I know you have a commitment in Portugal, but you woke up earlier and tried to sort of, put this in your schedule. It means a lot to us, and it shows that your sort of willingness and inclination to collaborate. And Simone, in your very busy schedule, you made yourself available. You're always one of the people that inspires me, and I look up to you. And then, of course, Miro, it's always a pleasure to partner with you, and looking forward to continue this conversation. I'll try to play this catalytic role within this group and take him forward. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Guria,
you.
for organizing. Bye. Enjoy
Bye.
your
Thank you very much. It was very good. Thank you very much, Simone. Yeah, super.
Zero based.
No, I love cats. I need
Yeah.
cats.